Welcome to today's episode. We're talking about divorce again, and I've asked the lovely Amanda to come back on. Amanda is the founder of SeparateSpace, and today we're going to talk about all the different experts that you can have in a divorce and which ones to use and when, so that you can use your money wisely. So welcome to the show, Amanda.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So for those of our listeners who haven't heard the original episode that we did, just talk to us a little bit about SeparateSpace. What does it do? Who does it help?
I'm a divorce lawyer by background and created SeparateSpace. It's an online, affordable legal platform for divorce, and it puts all in one place the information, the guidance, the tools that you need to navigate divorce with confidence, and it personalises all of that to your circumstances, and it's accessible in terms of price point, but also available 24/7.
And not just any solicitor, you were with one of the top firms, weren't you?
Oh, thanks.
So you're a safe pair of hands, Amanda. So I think one of the first experts that people think about when they're getting divorced is a solicitor. Well, let's put it this way. What shouldn't you talk to your solicitor about?
It is sort of baked into our culture, isn't it? From TV and films and call the lawyer. Yes. And lawyers, solicitors definitely have a place. What I would say to people is it's good if you do a bit of research yourself before going to see a lawyer, because then you can use that expensive, precious time as effectively and efficiently as possible. Solicitors are legally trained. They've gone through a really thorough process, so they will know the law, they will know how it applies to an individual's circumstances. They are regulated by the SRA so that you know that you're speaking to a professional. And there are ways to use a solicitor that are more cost effective. So it's about, as I say, doing your research before you go, and therefore asking the right questions, and then following up from that meeting, doing the things that the solicitor has suggested that you do, so that they are not having to chase you because they charge by a 6-minute unit.
So a top tip from one of my clients who was really, really happy with her solicitor. She managed to find local to her a solicitor that had been in one of these top firms in her 20s and 30s, sort of a central London top firm. And as that lady had had children, she'd moved out to be local to her. So if you look in people's bios on the websites, you can actually find some of these really, really well-trained solicitors right on your doorstep.
There are excellent solicitors out there. And if you are looking for a lawyer, always feel free to DM me on Instagram at SeparateSpace, because I'm very happy to recommend people. Do your research. It's okay to have a call with more than one solicitor and figure out which one feels right for you. They do have different approaches. It is really personal, so feeling like you have a connection with them and you feel comfortable with them is important.
So one expert that feels quite new is probably the divorce coach. So do you have to be rich to have a divorce coach?
So actually the options for professionals in this space now is a bit mind-boggling. There are many different people working in this space, and divorce coaches, divorce consultants are quite new to the scene. There is a distinction. It's not a formal distinction. This is not a regulated area. So what you get will vary. Again, do your research. A lot of divorce coaches have lived experience of divorce, and my understanding, having spoken to them, having seen how they work, is that they're holding your hand through the process. They're a sounding board. They will not give you legal advice. They don't necessarily know about the law or the processes, but they are someone that is neutral, who you're able to have a sort of partner through the process. Divorce consultants do much the same thing, but they tend to have a legal background.
Okay. And I suppose they're cheaper than a solicitor. I don't know, but so that you could go to them for different things.
Some are, some aren't.
Okay. Fine. And then, so divorce coach, divorce consultant, then financial advisor, obviously that's me.
Yes.
We've got a great tool that will model where you are now after the divorce, where you want to be, and it will help you know your number. So what do you actually need to walk away with from the divorce to live the life that you want? And I think that can give you a lot of clarity while you're going through the actual divorce process. And if you're not going to get anywhere near your number, the other thing that you can do is a reverse calculation. So look at all the different variables and say, what if I downsize at a certain age? What if I downsize now? What if I spent less? What if I lived longer or lived more? And you can play around with all those different variables. And a really good example of this is I had a client who had teenage children at home. She was so adamant at the beginning that she wanted to stay in the home, but she also wanted to retire early as well. And so we couldn't make all those things work. It just wasn't possible. So when I modelled, well, you could stay in the home, but you'd have to work till X, Y, and Z for a very long time. Or when the kids leave at 20, 21, however old that's going to be, and you committed to downsizing, you could actually retire a lot earlier. And this ended up being a lot earlier than she'd expected. It was sort of mid to early 50s. And in her mind, just like, I hadn't even thought about that. That means I can retire early and go and travel and have fun and enjoy my life. And that was so much more motivating. So she went in thinking that the house was the be all and end all, and actually came out thinking about holistically all about her standard of living. So it's really about modelling and using that model to really empower you during the divorce process.
And what value for her to have that input from you?
Yeah.
Because there is never one way to slice it
No.
in terms of dividing what's there between you and your ex. And then when you're going away with your part, there's never only one way to deal with it.
Exactly.
So understanding the options is really key. And I also think taking a step back, even understanding the finances. You know, there was a report that came out towards the end of 2023, and it found that 38% of people didn't have a good understanding of their ex's finances during the marriage. It is really normal for one person to take the lead on the financial side and one person perhaps doing more of the parenting or dealing with the home stuff. You know, it is normal in a marriage to share things and divide it up. But what that can mean when you're embarking on a divorce is that it feels really scary because you feel like you don't have a handle on the finances.
And the financial industry is just full of jargon. So it's not an easy thing to unpick anyway.
No, and that's a key element of what we're doing with SeparateSpace, is empowering people with the information so they can get on top and feel far more in control. And there is definitely a space for a financial advisor to come in and help you grapple with what that means in the long term.
So I'll put it in the show notes for anyone who wants to find an advisor. There is a website called 𝗓𝗡, and you put in your details, where you live, how much money you've got, and then it will match you with some advisors that could be suitable.
Yeah.
So I assume having emotional support throughout the divorce is invaluable. I often hear solicitors say, I feel like the therapist, for example. So it's important to go to your solicitor with legal problems, but then go to your therapist for emotional support.
Yeah, because a therapist is definitely cheaper per hour than a solicitor.
And a therapist isn't a solicitor either.
And a therapist is trained to work with you on the emotional side. You know, a lot of family lawyers have gone into that area of line of work because they want to help people, they want to support people, they are warm, they're people you're going to get on with, but they're not the best placed person to help you work through all of the emotional things you're grappling with that come with a divorce. So finding a therapist is a good idea if you can afford it. There are long waiting lists on the NHS, but you can get onto that NHS waiting list. So as a first step, go and see your GP. If you can afford a therapist privately, we can put in the show notes a good source of finding a therapist in your area. Okay. In terms of type of therapy, the research says that outcomes of therapy, the biggest factor for how successful it's going to be is your relationship with that therapist, not necessarily the type of therapy that person does. So just as I said, it's okay to speak to a few lawyers and find out which one you feel like you click with. It's okay to do the same with a therapist.
And so how does it work? So SeparateSpace literally going to hold your hand and say, right, this week you need to do this week you need to do that, and sort of guide you through the whole process.
So when members on board, we get some information about their circumstances. Have they started the divorce process? Do they have children? And broadly, how old are they? What broadly do their asset picture look like? And with that information, the platform builds a step-by-step pathway. So you can see the destination, you can see the steps that you need to take to get there. And many of our members have a solicitor. They just can't afford to have that solicitor on call the whole time. So it's a way to plug the gaps, a companion to see you all the way through. And we have on our team not just the legal expertise and the financial expertise, but we also have therapeutic experts. So relationship therapists and clinical psychologists who've all worked to create this sort of 360 package of support.
And then that just reminded me, I nearly forgot. So your My Parents Are Divorcing brochure, tell us a little about it. Where can people get it? What can they do?
Yeah, so this is something that we have just published, and it's an interactive workbook for children. It's great for children aged around 7 to 12, depends on your child. It might be something that you'd sit and read through with them. It might be something that they go away with and they come back when they've got questions. There's exercises in there, there's guidance. It's been co-created with clinical psychologist It's been co-created with clinical psychologist Dr. Rudkin and illustrated by a wonderful woman, 𝗙𝗑𝗪𝗓 Kitchen, who actually, fun fact, really nice, designed coins in Latvia. She's done some really amazing work. So we're really proud of it. And it's just another way to give your child a way to kind of process how they're feeling and think about their emotions. So it's available for free. You can get in touch with me. I can send you the link to download a copy. We've got hard copies.
I think it's lovely and it's beautifully put together as well. I think we always like to learn from people's mistakes. So are there things that you've seen throughout your career as a solicitor, common mistakes that we could perhaps learn from that you could talk to us about?
Many. One of the things that I see quite often are people thinking that they can hide financial information, and it's just not possible, because you have to disclose everything. And if you're then found to have hidden something, or your ex knows there's something you're not disclosing, then it puts discussions on such a difficult footing that then it's very difficult to negotiate an outcome. So thinking that you can hide things and that you can be kind of cleverer than the system never really plays out well.
And if someone was hiding something, how would it be traced?
So, I mean, ultimately, if you know that there are assets that are not being disclosed, firstly, go and get some legal advice. But ultimately, the court is the solution there. I think another mistake that I see is people not getting their ducks in a row. Yeah. So burying the head in the sand. Perhaps one of you is further along in terms of the emotional path.
That's very common.
Yeah, and one of you is either still feels like the marriage can be saved, or just isn't emotionally ready. And the problem with getting into the nuts and bolts of the financial settlement, if one of you is not emotionally ready, is that the decisions that you're taking or what you think you want is not going to be the same as what you think you want in 6 months. So just to take an example of a woman I spoke to quite some time ago, she wasn't ready. The divorce had taken her totally out of the blue, and she was desperate to stay in the family home. Kind of above all else, that's what she wanted. Yeah. And they looked into a measure order, which is a way for one person to retain an interest in the property until the property is sold at a later date. So that might be when your youngest kid is 16 or something. So they went into all of that. They got it all drafted. This all took a few months. And then she thought, actually, I need a fresh start. Yeah. I don't want to stay in the family home. But in those few months, while the negotiation had been happening and the paperwork was all being doing, she was healing, and she was seeing a future and she was feeling more hopeful. And then what you want might be different.
And what can you change that? Could you, in that
as long as it's not all kind of signed off, yes.
Yeah.
And so that's an important one. And to the extent that it's possible, and we're not robots, it's not always possible, but if you can separate the emotions from the facts, that can be quite a helpful thing to do. Some people are more able to do that than others, and it depends on where you are, the circumstances, your personality.
And could sometimes waiting actually be helpful? I mean, usually one person's thought about it for quite some time and got it in their mind, and the other person hasn't quite got there yet. So Can waiting sometimes actually be beneficial?
Sometimes there are reasons to move fast. It might be that different jurisdictions, that means different legal systems across the world are involved. It might be that there are safety reasons that you need to move fast. It might be that there are particular financial reasons to move fast.
Yeah. And it used to be capital gains tax was a reason to move fast, wasn't it? And we no longer have that.
Yeah.
No.
In the vast majority of cases, whether you start the ball rolling now or in 2 months, it's not going to make that much difference.
Yeah.
And you can use that time wisely. You can get informed. You can be going into the process with your eyes open. And that actually is going to be far more valuable. And you might find that a 6-week, 8-week delay to kind of get yourself ready emotionally, to get clued up on the process and the different elements, to understand how best to support your children, might actually mean that once you get it started, you're more efficient.
So we know divorce can be expensive. How much does it cost to be a member of your platform?
Well, divorce can be expensive, and I should say that there's a court fee to do the divorce process itself. That's the admin fee of no longer being married to somebody. So that's £593. Divorce lawyers cost somewhere between £250 to £500 around, plus, depending where you're going. Our platform is available from £25 a month, so it is an accessible, affordable way to just have a companion through that process.
Yeah.
Lots of people have a lawyer as well, or a lot of people actually in mediation, and it's a way to go into those mediation sessions informed. And then when you leave that session and you suddenly think, oh, I didn't ask about this, or I don't quite understand that, to ask those questions and get an answer.
And who's actually answering the questions? Is it AI, or is it frequently asked questions, or are your experts answering them?
So we've got guides that are written by experts that we keep up to date.
Yeah.
We have an AI assistant that is trained on our content only, so that you know that the answers are sourced
Correct,
from reliable content. We have the opportunity to speak one-to-one with people as well. Mm-hmm. So it depends what you need and what you want.
Well, thanks, Amanda, for your time. I think everyone will have learned a huge amount, and also big congratulations on your business too.